Senator Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Peters. Good morning to all of the nominees. Congratulations to you all for your nominations, and congratulations to your families, too, because this is a family effort, I know, and we are all grateful for your interest in serving. I'm going to start with a question for all of you, and I'd really ask you to restrict your answer to a simple sentence. If you are directed by the President to take an action that would violate the law, would you follow the President's directive or follow the law? Mr. Cairncross.
Senator, thank you for the question. I don't believe that that would ever happen, but to take your question, I would be faithful to the law.
Thank you. Mr. Law.
Thank you for the question, Senator. I'm confident that President Trump would not ask me to violate the law, and if confirmed, I will uphold the law.
Thank you. Mr. Percival.
Senator, the last two answers were perfect. I'd give the same answer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
Senator, I agree with my colleagues.
Thank you.
Senator, I agree with what's already been said.
Well, I appreciate all of you saying you will follow the law. I will just note for the record that I think it is unrealistic to rule out the possibility that this President of the United States would give a directive that violates the law. Now, Mr. Percival. Last month, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff said that President Trump's administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. 2 weeks ago, I asked Secretary Noem about this, and today I'd like to ask you about this as well, since you're obviously nominated to be the General Counsel of the Department of Homeland Security. So, Mr. Percival, let's just start with what is habeas corpus?
Thank you, Senator. Habeas corpus is a Latin phrase that means you shall have the body.
Right. And what is the foundational right that habeas corpus represents in our constitutional democracy?
Yeah, well, I guess there's a number of different concepts. There's the writ of habeas corpus, which is a judicial review mechanism. There's what we call the suspension clause, which is about suspending the writ of habeas corpus. And then there are several implications of that for the work that DHS is doing, such as the Alien Enemies Act.
Well, so, you know, I appreciate you, and I could do a law school debate about this. Let's just get to the core foundational principle here and why it's so important. It is the bedrock principle in our country that prevents the government from imprisoning someone without any justification or review. And it's a key right that makes America a free society, unlike North Korea or Iran. And it's important that we all as Americans understand, appreciate, and defend this principle. And one of the concerns I have, you just gave me an answer that circled around that essential piece of our constitutional democracy. Every American and every person in this country has a right, if they are detained, to demand that the government just come and say why they're detaining them and do it in public and give people that foundational entry to due process. And since many of us have concerns about this administration's commitment to due process, I think it's really important that we understand that foundational right. So do you agree that this is a foundational principle, that the government must bring a person before a court and provide a reason for that person's detention? Do you agree that it's critical that we have this right in order to be a free society?
I agree that the Constitution protects the availability of that writ except in enumerated circumstances in the Constitution.
Do you think it's an important thing for a free society? Do you believe we should be a free society?
I believe strongly in the ideals of the founders, and they included that in the Constitution.
You're also going to take an oath to the Constitution of the United States, right?
Yes, if confirmed, yes, ma'am.
If a court says that the Department of Homeland Security must bring a person in the government's custody before a court, will you advise Secretary Noem to follow that order?
Thank you, Senator. The policy of this administration is to follow court orders, and if confirmed, I would act consistent with that policy.
Thank you. Mr. Cairncross, I just want to follow up on the line of questioning that Ranking Member Peters started. He asked you about the reauthorization of the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015. I would also love to work with you and the administration on making sure we get that reauthorized. Another law that we also talked about when we met that expires on the exact same day is the state and local cybersecurity grant program. And we've talked about the importance of making sure that the federal government and the private sector, which controls so much critical infrastructure, works together on cybersecurity. But the other piece of that puzzle is to make sure that state and local governments have the tools they need to work effectively with the federal government and the private sector. So would you commit to working with us to reauthorize the state and local cybersecurity grant program as well?
Senator, I think there's no more important area, or it is extremely important, the relationship between the state and federal government on this attack. None of you are free of those attacks in your states, as you know, and yes, I look forward to working with you on that issue.
It's not just that we're vulnerable to attack, it's that most state and local governments simply do not have the budget or the tools and sometimes can't hire the experts, given the shortage of experts in this field around the country, to effectively guard against these attacks. So it's really important that these grants help them do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.